Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. Conventional wisdom is that success requires assertiveness, but especially for introverts, but also for others, craftily laying low can be wise. Here's why. We may feel obliged to respond to an assertive, even pushy person, but most of us don't like to be pushed. So, while we may accede to their demand, there usually are many subsequent opportunities to otherwise more enduringly thwart that person. For example, by keeping them out of the loop, by not touting them to others, and by subtly or not so subtly bad-mouthing them. There's also a less obvious reason to embrace craftily laying low. While America, of course, has many non-Christians, most Americans are, if not by faith, by cultural values Christian, in which humility and making others feel good are lauded, and boastfulness, which can make others feel less than, is deprecated. Of course, you shouldn't be a milk-toasty doormat. The sweet spot between aggressiveness and undue passivity is what I call craftily laying low. Here are some ways to craftily lay low. First, make your points understatedly. Today, assertiveness and even being loud and proud are urged, especially for women. But my clients of both genders have found that to be usually less effective in the long run than to be understated. And here's why. If you suck up most of the energy in a conversation with your loud and proud sales pitch, you leave less room for them to feel ownership in the idea. So, for example, if you think an idea would be good for your client, your organization, whatever, quietly, briefly, and modestly present it, ending with, "But what do you think?" Here's a variant on that. Send a draft of a work product of yours that you're proud of to someone whose favor you'd like to curry. Say something like, "This is a draft. I'm a little nervous about it. I value your opinion. What do you honestly think of it?" Except perhaps with unusually aggressive people, being understated is more likely to engender the other person's enthusiasm and perhaps willingness to adopt or promote it than if you give a super confident hard sales pitch. The next tip for laying low craftily is to talk less than your share of the time. This is a corollary of the previous suggestion. In a two-person conversation, talk 20 to 40% of the time. In a four-person conversation, 10 to 20%. Next tip, use what I call the 1-second pause. Especially if you're ideationally fluent, there's a tendency to interrupt a person or to jump in the nanosecond the person finishes talking. Subtly, that conveys that you're less interested in what they said than in what you have to say. It's not a great way to engender support. Also, doing that may mean that you haven't listened carefully enough to the end of their utterance, let alone taken a moment to consider your response. All that can be solved by getting in the habit of using the 1-second pause. Don't interrupt, and when the person finishes, wait a full second before responding. I have to admit, I don't follow that as often as I should. Next tip, be low maintenance. Today, management and coworkers are likely to say that they value questions, disagreement, openness, sharing of feelings, and so on. But quietly, if you go beyond expressing those very occasionally, you may suffer. A reason is that despite most people's statements about community, caring, and sharing, most people, especially if they're a typical busy person, are pretty maxed out just taking care of number one. They appreciate people who don't require much time or effort, and especially people who make their life easier. Indeed, one of the best questions you can ask a boss or coworker is, "I've got a little extra bandwidth. Is there anything I can do to make your life easier?" And the final tip on laying low craftily is hide your opinions. Today, we are very polarized on political, racial, and gender issues, perhaps even more so than may be apparent. You incur risk even when presenting a view that you think the other person agrees with. That's because many people publicly espouse a popular view, but privately hold a very different one. So, for example, let's say you live in San Francisco, where most people espouse legalizing illegal immigrants, and a person says that, but doesn't really believe that. If you say you agree, quietly, that person may like you less and thus be less likely to support you. It's safer to stay neutral with a response such as, I understand. The takeaway? In our ever more competitive world, success gurus, many of whom ironically rarely work in a real-world workplace, are touting ever more assertiveness, from power poses to speaking loud and proud. But based on my 5,500 career counseling clients and on my own experience, having worked in a number of for and nonprofit organizations, even if you're assertive by nature, you'd be wise to consider craftily laying low. In any case, I thank you for watching and appreciate if you would give a thumbs up, or if you feel appropriate, a thumbs down, sharing, hitting the subscribe button to my channel, and in any event, I of course do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.